going? All right, what is up, everybody? How's everybody's day going? As you can see, I got Jeremy back on the pod, and this is probably the happiest man in all of Denver. This has been his guy for a couple of months. So obviously we're reacting to the Broncos selecting Bo Nix, the A+ grade that I give them. But Jeremy, take it away, man. How you feeling today?
Oh man, I couldn't be more excited. I've been on this island, I feel like, for months, and
Yeah,
to
been.
me it just felt so obvious. Bo is like the perfect fit for Sean. And if Sean would have been like, oh no, I like JJ, whoever else, I would have felt like I'm crazy because everything to me just lined up so perfectly. And I was like, how is it even possible that this guy that's this good and this perfect of a fit is going to be available to us most likely? And then, like we were saying just before this, man, during that 10-11 range, especially after Penix went at 8, I was so nervous. I was like, please don't let the Raiders jump us. I know that they wanted Penix, and now they're going to be like maybe desperate. And oh man, I was just, when the Jets were on the clock at 11, I just kept looking at the thing saying, please say pick is in. Because I knew once the pick was in, they weren't picking a quarterback, and then we were going to have a shot at him. So yeah, no, obviously I'm very excited.
Yeah. No, likewise, man. And you were on it, and I think I would say I was a little bit late to the party, but it's funny because the way that it started, I remember, okay, the season ends, you start looking at prospects. Originally kind of fell in love with JJ McCarthy, and I was like, let me take a look at Bo Nix and kind of start doing some due diligence. And immediately it flipped. And you can see it. I even had tweeted something. I retweeted it yesterday just because I wanted to have a date on it. But it was something along the lines of, I wrote after further evaluation, Bo Nix over to JJ McCarthy. And that was March 23rd. So, like I said, it's
Right.
been a month, and for those exact reasons. And before we even dive deeper, I do want to give a special shout out, David. David Talks Broncos, my guy. I appreciate you. I watched your reaction video yesterday. Super appreciate the shout out to the channel. I know you had mentioned Jeremy as well, so very
Yeah.
much appreciated. But yeah, man, it's funny because just like you had said, once you really dig into it, and when you start looking and you read through the tea leaves, it's not even like you try to sell yourself into Bo Nix, right? Because I felt like if we wanted somebody, we could always get up a chance of getting him. So you take that holistic approach, you kind of look at it 30,000 foot view. Just like you said, everything made sense. And it started to make sense more so when you start to learn about him and what are people saying about him as a person and as a player. And I love the fact that he's an older prospect. At first, that was kind of my big hesitation, but I like that he's mature. He's obviously gone through a lot. I love the fact that he's married. I mean, I've been married now for just over 2 years, and I can tell you that settling down and then it helps you with your focus, especially once you get that huge lifestyle change. So yeah, I'm
Definitely.
all about it, man. And the draft yesterday, the way that it fell, I don't know if got a chance to watch Sean and George Payton's press conference afterwards, but there was a
Most of it.
lot that, like, Atlanta really threw in that wrench for a lot of teams.
I saw that.
I still don't think they would have traded back, but I think they would have at least considered it a little bit. But Sean Payton was really scarred about what happened with him missing out on Mahomes. So, uh, yeah, I mean, I think there's so much of like, what a terrible pick, or I can't believe it, or they could have traded back, or some experts were giving the Broncos a C because they could have gotten him later in the draft. It's like, dude, first of all, you don't know that, and secondly, who cares? Who cares if
Right.
he's drafted first overall, or if he's drafted at Mr. Relevant, or if he's undrafted? If he ends up panning out, it
Right.
worked out. And all that this does is at least shows that you had a plan and you executed the plan. So I'm pumped, man. I'm A+, no doubt about it.
From the minute we hired Sean Payton to last night when we made the pick, it's all been leading up to Sean needs to get his guy.
Mhm.
And so if you're going to mess around, and we found out later in that press conference and other things, Sean was beaming in that press conference. He's so excited.
Oh
This
yeah.
was his guy. Obviously, we had a chance at JJ. You know, it wasn't him. And he said, we knew that Minnesota probably liked JJ. We thought the Raiders liked Penix, and we liked Bo. So we almost wanted to make the phone call and tell him, hey, let's just all just chill out and take our people. And that way we're all happy and nobody gets crazy here. And then Atlanta threw the little monkey wrench in there. But yeah, no, I mean, it's just, yeah. Why would you risk losing out? I mean, they've repeated it over and over and over, but he lost out to Mahomes when he was going to take him, didn't get it. And they said at the same time in that draft, he said, oh, the Chiefs didn't have to trade up that high to get Patrick Mahomes. And then he's like, yeah, they did because I was taking him next. So these people who make these draft grades, obviously, like they're just guessing as much as anybody else.
Yep. No, yeah, it's funny because it was like, what why are you excited about getting the sixth quarterback? It's like just because he was selected sixth, like
Right.
I don't care about anybody's board. I care about the Broncos board.
Yep.
And you're still everything's hypothetical. I mean, could he be bad? Sure. Could he be great? Yeah. But to be like get the sixth quarterback is just it's lazy analysis.
Totally.
I remember when Josh Allen got selected by the Bills. I had some Bills fans buddies and they were losing their mind. Oh my God, we took the third best quarterback. Oh my God, we took the fifth best. Like
I
Josh
know.
Rosen's better. Lamar Jackson's better. They could have gotten, a Saquon. They could have gotten a Baker Mayfield or Sam Darnold. And then
Yep.
it's like, how did that work out? Like the third quarterback or the fifth best quarterback based on who, right? So it's like, you mean, you don't know. And then you had a lot of people that were pumped up by the Cardinals getting Josh Rosen. You just don't know how these things are going to end up playing out. But all I care about is it was the Broncos board. He was the third quarterback on their board. There's a lot of sources that say that, and obviously the top two, it wasn't realistic that we're going to be able to get him anyways. So,
Yeah. It's
and it was
not
obvious.
exactly.
It was obvious that that was like even after I heard it was obvious before that Bo Nix was much higher rated on their board because they made no moves to go up and get Penix or they made no moves to go up and get JJ McCarthy when they easily could have. So you can just tell they were sitting back and they were waiting and they were good with it.
Well, look at how many smoke screens they put out there. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
it was weekly. I think Sean, and he admitted this a little bit in that press conference, he would watch people link Knicks to us, and he was like, shut up, like, be quiet. Because that's why I started believing it was Knicks this whole time, like about a month ago, because they were saying zero about him. And like you would hear about, oh, they worked at this guy, but you didn't hear a peep. And it's like the people that like Joel Klatt and Chris Sims and these people, Joel Klatt, who actually was on the Saints team, who did an install with Drew Brees in the room, knew exactly what he's looking for,
Yep.
said, this is exactly the guy who he would like.
Yep.
And when you have a guy in the room with that kind of a knowledge, I'm like, I'm trusting that guy more than I'm trusting just,
Oh, no
you know,
doubt. He's the one that
whoever.
got me to look into Bo Nix more, right? For
Okay.
saying that exact thing. And he even said it. He even said something along the lines of like, I don't care that he's the sixth ranked. He's a first round. But the most important thing about this is fit for these people, right?
Exactly.
Like JJ McCarthy was the fifth quarterback taken and Bo Nix was the sixth quarterback taken. And you cannot convince me that they're at least not in the best position in comparison to the other four,
Yeah.
and that they're the best fit for those systems. So it doesn't really matter where they end up getting taken, right? Like I don't think the Giants care that they got the second best receiver in the draft. It's like those kinds of things are all semantics, and it's just a way for clickbait. Um,
It's just lazy because it's like, oh, QB1 is before QB2, so that means they're better. And it's like, no, it's just a different flavor. It's just like what flavor matches that team. That's all it is. It's like Dan Marino was sixth in 83. How did that work out? Lamar Jackson was five in 2018. How did that work out? So yeah, like you said, if you have the structure around the person, it doesn't matter when. It just matters the fit.
mhm. Yeah. No, absolutely. And I love it, man. And I love what Sean Payton had said in the press conference afterwards. He acknowledged the fact he knows, okay, a lot of the passes are screens and behind the line of scrimmage stuff, right? He's like, we get that, and we're not gonna punish him for running a certain system. He's like, but they took all those out and they
Right.
focused on deep and intermediate passes, and they got to the analytics team, and he's still ranked higher than all of them too
Yep.
there, right? The way he manipulates the pocket, the way he's, how he throws under pressure, checks and being able to call plays. It's big. I think the only big adjustment there's obviously always going to be a huge adjustment. The only thing is the question mark is how can he operate under center versus in the shotgun? But that's easy to
Yeah.
coach in and work and build a system around. But yeah, man, I was thrilled. I think it could have gone in so many wrong ways. And I've been spending a lot of the morning today, aside from just being at work, I've been like responding to friends and family or people on Twitter about like just lazy analysis. And like the thing about
Mhm.
it is like everybody has their opinion. If you don't think Bo Nix is going to work out, I'm totally fine. But give me tangible reasons why. Because
Exactly.
what I can assure you is all of the reasons why he will work out, the list is way, way, way longer than all the reasons why he would not work out. Now, there's always external factors, but just based off of like the film, the stats, and the information that um, it's there's significantly more pointing to it being positive than negative. So,
the narratives are always two things. It's always he's either old, he was bad at Auburn, or his arm strength isn't the best. Those are
Yeah,
the three things that anybody can say. And it's
I
like,
know.
okay, first of all, there was COVID. There's three guys that are all the same age as him. Nobody ever talks about how Jaden Daniels is about as old or Michael Penix is just as old. So, like, first of all, that's silly. As far as like his being COVID threw a wrench into, like, that's why they're there. Okay, the arm strength is, yeah, there are certain throws when he doesn't step into it because he has good mechanics enough to just get it there on its own, and it's not just like JJ McCarthy. I like him, but everything was a fastball, and he didn't have like the same type of touch. Where Nix would throw it softer, but like be more accurate with it.
Yep.
And all Nix has been doing this last offseason these last few months is just working on his footwork just so he can clean that up, and that's going to improve his arm strength anyways. So I'm that if that's his biggest flaw, that's the easiest thing you can clean up as you go into the NFL. So
Well,
like
yeah,
really,
and here's the thing, like his arm strength is not a flaw at all. It's just not a
no,
huge plus.
it's
Like
not elite.
it's unbelievably sufficient, right? I mean,
Yeah,
the guy's got a strong arm. People don't talk about it. He's got really big hands. That helps a lot. Small
yeah,
mechanic tweaks. He can make every throw that's going to be asked of him. It's not going to be an issue. And you know what I kind of think about it? Like, it's funny because this a lot of the same people that are like, oh, talking about his time at Auburn. I was driving to work this morning thinking about it. Joe Burrow was a seventh round pick before his last season at
perfect example.
at LSU, right? And he had a huge year and he looked phenomenal. Don't get it twisted. I love Joe Burrow when he's coming out. But you can make the argument easily that, like, well, he was a product of the system. They had dominant receivers. I mean, they had freaking Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase on the same team,
Yeah,
you know? Um,
same with
but when you
Jaden
look,
and Michael Penix this year.
yeah, when you look at him, it's not like he's unbelievably athletic. You can easily say Bo Nix is more athletic than Joe Burrow is, right? His
Yep,
arm strength is not that elite. He was hyped up that year because he was very smart and he was
yep,
extremely accurate. And it's like,
yep.
okay, so why did he get that love? But all of a sudden now Bo Nix isn't because he had a couple, bad years or he's been in college for a long time. So
Yeah,
people just don't like what they're not used to. They're not used to a guy that plays a lot of college football playing well in the NFL. But they don't
I think it
realize
was.
COVID and the transfer portal can do a lot.
Yeah, and I think what happened with Bo, the reason why people are more down on him is people didn't know Joe Burrow, people didn't know Michael Penix, and people didn't know Jaden Daniels that much. Bo
Mhm.
Nix was coming out of Alabama as, or out of high school as Mr. Alabama in 2018. He
Yep.
was the highest like rated dual threat guy Auburn had ever had. He had legacy from his dad being a quarterback at Auburn. He had all these things, so much hype surrounding him that, and then he stepped in. He won SEC Freshman of the Year. They beat Alabama in the Iron Bowl. They beat Justin Herbert when he was at Oregon. Like his stock was like, oh my gosh, this guy's going to be unbelievable. And then when they switched coaches and he lost talented guys and all this other stuff, then yeah, things are like he still improved completion percentage. He still improved like yards per pass. It's just it wasn't like, oh, this was one of the more dominant teams in the SEC. And so like now like and he forced it. He
Mhm.
was like forced to do more with less, and he admits he forced it some stuff. But like when he was able to reset at Auburn at Oregon, that's when it was like, okay, I'm just going to not play. I'm going to play within myself. I'm going to do the things that I can do. I'm going to prepare. And he crushed it. And
Yeah.
the fact that people can't let go of the Auburn stuff, it's like nobody's holding Jaden Daniels to account what he did at Arizona State. Like nobody even talks about that.
Right. It's so funny. I'm telling you, there's so many uh examples of that, of just the hypocrisy. It's like, why don't you
Yeah.
talk about this then?
Yeah.
Why don't you talk about the huge step back that Caleb Williams took this year? Right?
Or
They'll
Drake
talk
May.
about it with Drake. Well, they'll talk about it with Drake May. Some of the pundits will talk, oh, Drake May kind of
Yeah.
took a step back, his stock is falling. Okay, so how was Caleb Williams this year, right?
Right.
Why don't you
And
talking
Caleb
about a lot
Williams'
of this
numbers
stuff?
were Caleb Williams' QBR numbers this year, like in pocket, out of pocket, and under pressure were bad, like
Yeah,
really bad. And
yeah,
they're and of course they just excuse it because they see the wow throws and they just go, oh well, his offensive line's trash, or
yeah.
oh his one of his receivers got hurt. What's like his other receiver still getting picked in like the third round of this draft. So it's like he didn't have
Yeah.
nobody.
And they're
And so
catching
did and his
balls
running
wide
back
open.
too.
Yeah. And they're
Yeah,
wide open
exactly.
when they're catching. Yeah. I mean, and listen, I think Caleb Williams has a chance to do very well. I think even though Chicago has a terrible history, I think they actually have something decent going now. So I mean,
Yeah.
maybe, but we're just pointing this out. I would say for me, not even just to say, oh, Bo Nix is going to be better than Caleb Williams. Or it's not about who's going to be better than who, but it's like when you're making an evaluation, make a fair evaluation, right? If you look at it like I just think guys with high upside are better. I rank them higher than, and because, you like to be able to reach potential. If you think that Sean Payton's going to be able to really spur on and tap into a lot of those tools, and that's why you think maybe Drake May or Jaden Daniels would have been better, fine. That's a fair argument. But to be like, oh no, he's Mr. Screen and Mr. Short Pass and he sucked at Auburn, it's like, cool, man. I'm not even gonna waste my time with you. I'm really
Yeah.
not. It doesn't make any
Seriously.
sense.
And what you said earlier about what Sean's process was about just let's eliminate. And first of all, okay, throwing screens and short passes is a skill that a lot of people don't have. A lot of quarterbacks say that's one of the harder throws to throw because you have to hit people in the right shoulder at the right time, everything. That's when the accuracy really has to matter. But even throwing all of those out, that's when they wanted to see, okay, well, let's just move all that and then see what the numbers are. Because I'm sure, completion percentage was inflated because of that and all that kind of thing. So I did the exact same thing when I started looking at Bo Nix back in January. I started watching each game one by one, and then I would go through the whole game. I would every single pass I would put together, I would edit, and then all the short stuff, screens and dump offs, I just take out. And so I ended up with a 23-minute video that I put on YouTube. You can go watch it. Jeremy Sean A. It's called 23 Minutes of Bo Nix. And literally, it has all killer, no filler. There was no screens, no dump offs, and it is 23 minutes of this. You just like intermediate, long, like on time, on target, like.
Mhm.
And that's when I was like, I don't understand this narrative. Like, I wanted to see for myself. How do you throw for 4,500 yards, 45 touchdowns, and 3 picks off of screens and dump offs? You can't do that. So
Yeah.
like something's
Yeah, you
not
can.
like the math ain't mathing, as they say.
Exactly.
And so if you watch that video, you go, oh my gosh, this guy's got way more than the narratives say. And that's
Yeah.
what it drove me so crazy. That's part of the reason why I was so pro Knicks was because like I kept hearing stuff that just wasn't true. And I was just like, but that isn't actually true. And you can go watch it anytime
Mhm.
you want. You just have to like watch it.
Yeah. You have to
So
put the work in. I mean,
yeah,
it's a good point. And then when I really started to fall in love with him as a prospect and I felt like he was going to be a really good fit was hearing him talk. I'm big on the background. I think the way you interview, the way that you interact, your family background in terms of like, what's in like your DNA and what you're used to is incredibly important. Like it's one of the reasons that I actually was super low on Zach Wilson when he came out of the draft. And I still
okay.
am. I mean, we got him for
Yeah,
free. But
yeah,
because like you heard the things about like he's really cocky, right? The ADHD thing, whatever, you can overcome that. But his uncle's very wealthy and he takes things for granted. Like whether that ended up being true or not, when you hear those kinds of things, you're like, all right, I can see it. Maybe this prospect's not going to be taking this seriously. It was funny when we drafted Paxton and he shows up to like a presser and he's wearing like he looked like a bum, like he's wearing just like regular
yeah,
clothes. To me, I was like, red flag immediately, right?
totally,
And
totally.
it's always in hindsight you can look at it, but but you look at him, son of a coach, right? Football is just in his DNA. He's a football family. He's a really intellectual kid, not even just from a football standpoint, but like when you listen to him talk, you can tell he's smart.
Yes,
You can tell how mature he is. Um, so yeah, I think a lot of the negative on him was just uh, unjustified stuff, right?
definitely.
A
There's a
lot of it.
couple of things with like his background that when he did I think it was with Chris Sims when he did that podcast. So his dad, being a former quarterback, didn't want him to play organized football until he was at least in the 7th grade. So that's when he started playing actual tackle football. I think he probably played like flag football or something, but actual tackle football, he didn't start till he was in 7th grade. So a bunch of the kids that he played with had already been playing for years. And then they immediately made him the quarterback. He played like JV and all this stuff. And then when he was in 8th grade, the high school senior uh, starting quarterback went down, and they made him an 8th grader who'd been playing tackle football for 1 year the starting quarterback. And then He was literally the starting quarterback for 5 years, and he was starting in 8th grade. That is insane. And I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sure he had a bunch of like, your dad is like, you've been around football for like your whole life, and your arm's good and all that. But still, that to be able to like go into a high school locker room as an 8th grader and be like, "Hey guys, get behind me, and we're gonna go." That takes a ton of maturity. That is insane. And
No
like you
doubt.
said, he's married. Who, first of all, Bo Nix is such a cool name, and his middle name's Chapman, which is like Chap Broncos. That's like that sounds destiny
His
to
middle
me.
name is what?
Chapman.
His middle name is longer than his entire first and last name combined.
Yeah, but
That's
and the
wild.
reason his middle name is Chapman is because it's his
Oh yeah.
mom's maiden name. But
Good shit.
dude, but it's like Chap and Broncos. It's like, dude, that's like meant to be as it could possibly be. But
Yeah.
his wife was an Auburn cheerleader named Izzy Smoke. Like the coolest names I've ever heard in my
Yeah,
life.
but Bo and Izzy's good. Nah,
Yeah.
only thing I said, I think you like to retweeted this, or you sent me a funny GIF, was
Oh, that's right.
I want to see the hairstyle go, man. I don't know if I can deal. I really don't know if I can deal with a quarterback room with Zach Wilson's like high school looking hairstyle and
Uh-huh.
Bo Nix's high school looking hairstyle. I will say I like Jared Stidham's, but I mean, obviously it's more of a joke. But
Sure,
switch
sure.
it up, man. Switch it up. You know what I mean? He looks
Yeah, no,
like
we got
you
to
know,
start calling him Iceman because that's exactly what it looked like. When I
exactly what
saw
it
that
looks like.
haircut, I was like, "Ooh, that's Val Kilmer, man. That's Iceman right there."
Yeah. No, no doubt,
Um,
man. No doubt. Well, what do you
that's
think? What
so
do you
fun.
think is what do you think should be the plan for day two of the draft? Because I don't want to forget about it, right? We
Yeah.
got a whole another couple rounds. What's your ideal scenario and what you want to see happen?
Well, now that we have Bo Nix, there's a couple of people that would be like nice to get just from a comfort situation, kind of like what they did with Joe Burrow, getting his wide receiver.
Yep.
I mean, if you're going to make a move, Troy Franklin replacing, you know, Josh Reynolds is like only here for a year or whatever. Cortland Sutton's up in the air. Troy Franklin would be ideal. I mean, those guys already have
Yeah. Yeah.
unbelievable chemistry. Um, I like, obviously Lad McConkey's still there, but he's going to be gone very quickly. I love Javon Baker. I love Luke McCaffrey. I like Brendan Rice. There's some wide receivers out there that I think would be. He needs like
There's a lot.
technicians.
There's a
He needs
lot of
technicians.
receivers. Yeah.
I don't personally love like for him. I don't personally love like the Jermaine Burtons, Malachi Corleys because those guys aren't technicians. They're kind of like, I'm just going to run around. And then once I get the ball, then I'm really good with the ball in my hands. But like Bo Nix seems to be like the guy is like, I need you to be like how Peyton was. I need you to not be 9.5 yards out. I need you to be 9 exactly because I'm going to get the ball out on time, right in the spot. And so I need people that are going to be like technicians of the game for him. I think that would be the best fit for him.
Yeah.
So
Well, and
being,
it's also you got to look at, what Sean Payton wants, especially if they end up trading Sutton, which I still think happens. I think it
okay,
happens either today or tomorrow. But like
probably
if
tomorrow.
that's a big if, because if that happens, it can change a lot of things.
Right.
So that's why it's hard to look, but there's so many good receivers and weapons. And I think there's
Yeah.
even a couple tight ends that I'm really intrigued by, like in the later rounds.
Definitely.
Um,
Jared Wiley is huge. Ben Sinot's huge. I personally love Dallin Holker from CSU. I think he has
I did
unbelievable
too.
hand. Like
Yeah,
what he
I
did to
did.
CU put me on notice. Him and Kamara on that CU game when CSU played CU, I was just like, oh man, those two guys are legit. So
Yeah,
Dallin Holker, you could get him later.
yeah.
Um,
I kind of like
and
Theo Johnson from Penn
yeah,
State. I
Theo
didn't do too
Johnson
much
too.
on him, but he seems like
Yep.
he's got a lot of intrigue. But yeah,
Penn
I put
State.
on
Yeah.
my Twitter yesterday. I love Vlad McConkey. Always have. Love to see
Oh
him.
yeah.
I
I
would
was
love.
sad Ricky Pearsall left because or
Oh,
got
I
picked because
know.
I love Ricky Pearsall.
I know. I know. I didn't think we really had a shot with him, but
Probably
yeah,
not. Yeah.
yeah. Always liked Keon Coleman. I think this is one of those where like if Sutton goes and we trade him, I'm almost convinced that like he could be just an immediate plug and play because he's like a very physical, body you out.
Yeah.
He
Keon
kind
Coleman.
of projects like him
Yes,
with
he does.
Keon
The same
Coleman. So
same body size. Yep.
yeah, I think depending on what we do with Sutton, obviously will change what we end up doing a receiver because you're kind of thinking, okay, we need a big body guy who could be a wide receiver one. But I keep forgetting about Tim Patrick, just whatever reason. And I'm like,
Well,
if he
yeah,
can be
you just
healthy,
can't
there's a
count on that.
chance. No, you can't count on that. It's not a plan,
That's going to be a
there,
bonus if
but it's
anything.
still somebody there. So like, do you bring somebody in with more of a Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick body type, or do you go with someone who's just gonna slice and dice you like Lad McConkey? Because McConkey, as it stands now, our receiver
Yeah.
room is a perfect fit.
Yeah. I mean, to me, if you're going to smaller guy, even a guy like Jacob Cowing is really good out of Arizona. He's like one of those littler guys, but like super technician, fast, like shifty. Again, the two guys that I would most like to see is Javon Baker and Luke McCaffrey. There's two people out there in the Twitter world and YouTube world that are like, oh, you only like McCaffrey because of his last name. And I'm like, have you seen this guy's like combine numbers? And just he's been playing a wide receiver for 2 years at Rice. Guy catches everything. And if you were old enough to watch Ed McCaffrey in his prime, like Luke McCaffrey is Ed McCaffrey. Like he's
He's
a
about the
great
same size.
blocker,
Yeah, he's
great
about the same
hands.
size.
Oh yeah, no, exactly. I actually used to play in when I was playing basketball. We showed up at the gym to have a game one night, and walking in with me was Ed McCaffrey, and it was probably Christian or Luke, one of them, because he was like a couple of his kids were about to play like younger, like on the right gym, and we were going to go play in the left gym. And thinking back on it now, I'm like, damn, that was a couple NFL players
Yeah,
and
crazy.
McCaffrey, because I mean, obviously knew Ed McCaffrey. He was my favorite player. I had like his jersey and everything, but no,
Yeah.
Luke McCaffrey would be sweet. That would be good.
Yeah, Eddie Mack, side story. I just remember this. Really, I don't know if I've shared this. Eddie Mack he had a play that is the reason why I'm so in love with football today. Um, and that was obviously Super Bowl 32 when he laid that block and you saw him point at the guy.
Ryan
I still
Williams,
get chills thinking about it. I got
dude.
chills at the time, and I was a kid. I was like 7 or 8 years old, and I was like, I got so fired up. I'm like, I'm watching every single game of this sport, and so
And
he's
the
always
way
got a
I love that play as well. Like that, the way the commentator, I think it was Paul McGuire, he goes, "Did you see the block of Ed McCaffrey? He
mm,
just totally wiped out Brian Williams." I was
yeah.
like, "Yeah," and then because you didn't, you were watching Howard Griffin run down. You know, he caught a screen pass and it was a good catch, and he was running down sideline, and I didn't catch it. And so then they showed the replay,
Oh, and
and
he
Ed
just
McCaffrey,
points at
who
him.
never gloated, never did anything, always was just like hand the ball to the ref. He's like, just gave him that little point,
Oh,
and I was,
I
oh
love it.
dang,
I love
we're
it.
gonna win the Super Bowl.
I love it.
Yep.
I love it. I love it. But yeah, I mean, oh, man, so we could always go for forever, but we'll get this thing wrapped up. I think receivers obviously somebody that we can look at. I'd like to
Yep.
see a pass rusher or an interior defensive lineman as well. But ideally we find a way to have at least two picks today, whether it's trading back a little bit or
Would be
I don't
nice.
know if a future pick to be able to move up. There's some buzz that it'll happen, but I'd like to see at least two. But yeah, I'm excited.
76. I would say there's some if we just stick at 76, the guys that I always mock at 76 are like people like Jonah Ellis, who's a pass rusher, his another son of a coach. Um, that would be a great pick. There's a couple developmental tackles. There's a guy out of Yale that he has the right size. I would love to see somebody like that with Zach Streif. Um, Again, like somebody like a wide receiver, a defensive tackle. You have people like Rook Ororo or whatever, however you say his name.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And every time I hear it, it's like Scooby Doo. It's
Well,
like
what are the odds
Shaggy.
what are the odds that Tavondre Sweat kind of drops a little bit?
Oh, I definitely think there's. Yeah, I think he will
Because
be there.
I
100% he will be there.
and I've always liked Mason Smith from LSU too. I put him on the list, but Tavondre Sweat's like one of those guys that I feel like is exactly what this defense could use, like like an actual nose, 300 plus
Me too.
pounder, like 350 plus pounder.
The
Um,
problem is his weight is can he keep it under control? Because like to be that big in college is insane, you
mhm,
know. And then like it's almost like a Gilbert Brown comp from like that same Super Bowl like the Packers
yeah,
had. And he just got a DUI, which is like obviously your decision making outside of football is not
yeah,
the best,
not ideal.
but not ideal. But yeah, you're right. Physically, that's exactly what this team needs. So
Yeah,
if they've done their character work, which I'm sure they have, that's one thing I wanted to say about like what I love so much about where we're at these last couple of years, as opposed to the Paxton Lynch's and the Jay Cutlers and all that kind of stuff, is Sean Payton's process is so much better than what we've been doing. And I will say, like, giving the guys the packet at 5 o'clock the night before, and then at 9 a.m., how much do you remember? How much do you know? Is such a way of testing.
Yeah.
Like, if that would have eliminated Paxton Lynch. Like, Paxton Lynch would have been not on the board.
Oh, 1,000%.
So,
But it shows we have a plan, right?
right.
And
And
that's
then,
why the pick is so good.
right. So it's like, I'm gonna give you the packet, then I'm gonna stress you physically, and then how's your mental after that? Then let's see. That's exactly the type of like thing.
It's
And all
realistic,
these right,
right?
and all these other prospects, they've been saying, like Michael Penix, they said, who is the toughest, meeting you had? And they said Denver, because they were the only ones that showed me all my bad plays. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, that's crazy that the other teams aren't doing that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I want to challenge the person, and I want to see how they respond to a challenge.
Yeah,
And
no doubt.
even Spencer Rattler said the same thing, is like, they asked a bunch of questions that were like, and they tested me like mentally on it. And so when Sean said that thing where he said, we have a really good process of evaluating quarterbacks better than a lot of other teams out there, people just took that as just straight arrogance and ego. And they're just like, oh, well, he's the smartest guy ever. And it's like, well, and then you hear like the actual prospects talking about it, and you go, well, maybe he is way just more thorough than what all these other teams are doing. And that's why
Well, yeah.
when Bo Nix gets picked, you are confident that if he loves him, then he like passed all these tests. You know that he
Mm-hmm.
went through all that stuff. I mean, I already kind of knew that because I've done all that like background work and watching all these podcasts and things with him. But like, if Sean is like giddy about getting a guy, did you see that Adam Schefter tweet where Adam Schefter said, about how Sean barely missed out on Patrick Mahomes and he was sick about it? And he said he
Mm-hmm.
feels just as confident about Bo Nix as he did about Patrick Mahomes. Now, that doesn't mean he's going to be Patrick Mahomes, but like what he's saying is that evaluation, the way I felt about it is the same. That is like, that should make everybody happy. And all the people
Yeah.
that are like, this wasn't my guy, maybe I was a JJ guy, maybe I was a Drake May guy, maybe I was whatever. You should just want that your coach that you spent all the money on got the guy that he wanted. That's all that matters.
Mm-hmm.
He's excited because whether I think it, whether you think it, whether anybody thinks, whatever their opinion evaluation was, all that matters was Sean's evaluation, and getting him excited about the future, because this is saying to everybody, he's in it for the long haul. Bo Nix is here for the long haul, and now it's just like build around him and let's go.
Yep. Exactly. Now you've eliminated a big question mark. So now you can just focus on building the rest of your team around him. You got a plan in place. You've got a system. We haven't had this in Denver since God knows how long. I mean, even signing Peyton Manning, there's like obviously a luck factor to it, but like then he became the plan, but he was never the plan, right?
And that
The
was always
plan
short.
really,
That was always going to be short term.
yeah, and
We haven't had this rookie guy since. I mean, when have we?
yeah.
Jay Cutler maybe, but even that, like within a year or two, you kind of heard rumblings like Jay Cutler's not that much into football. I was working at a TV station. I had heard stuff where this dude's hanging out at a bar after practice every single day. Like, he obviously didn't love football. Like, that was
Yeah.
obvious.
Yeah, and the real plan that year was to start Tebow, tank the year, and get Andrew Luck, and they threw a wrench in that.
Tebow
And then
did.
so you know what I mean. So there was not a plan, but now you feel like there's a legitimate plan. A lot of people are like, well, what if he ends up falling on his face and he sucks? Okay, you pick a quarterback next year.
Yeah.
What makes you
What if?
think that if you would have taken another position, right? Actually, here's the funny part: if you took another position and he ended up actually being really good, you're still
Yeah.
doing the quarterback market again next year.
Yeah. You're
Right?
doing Josh Allen. You're the Bradley Chubb with Josh Allen thing all over again if you do
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
what does that do you? And
Yeah.
here's the thing: best case scenario is Sean, one, falling in love with a guy, two, being able to get that guy, and three, not having to trade up to get that guy.
Yep.
Because if
Huge.
he only fell in love with Jane Daniels or Drake May or Caleb Williams, and then you had to trade 4 drafts worth of stuff just to get him, then you're like having to build. You don't have to do any of that. So he found the guy he loved at the cost of our pick. That is like, should be so optimistic.
And did you see how fast they put it in?
Oh, they weren't waiting. Yeah. I bet.
Denver went on the clock It was 10 minutes. At 9 minutes and 47 seconds, they said pick was in. It took them
Wow.
13 seconds to announce it.
Yeah, I
So
would
they
feel the
knew.
same way. I was sitting there in my kitchen, dude. I was sitting there in my kitchen just watching it, and I was just like, just please let this happen. Just please let this happen. If this is like, and no offense, like you said, no offense to Brock Bowers or whoever else is still on the board, but it's like we need to have Sean have his guy. Then we can get around him. We can build around him. I mean, I would much rather have Bo Nix with Sean and then a Theo Johnson, like you said, than Brock Bowers and then like a Michael Pratt. I'm sorry, but like that wouldn't be nearly as exciting. So, dude, that's why I was like so pumped. And I've been thinking about this obviously for like months, and I didn't want to just get too obsessive about it where I was just like, if it doesn't happen, I'm going to be devastated by it because I'm just going to write, I'm rolling with the Broncos no matter what. But the fact that it actually happened and everything is like on board and Sean's like super excited, I mean, I couldn't be happier.
Yep.
And the new jersey's dropping on Monday, and then now we have our quarterback. And since when have we ever had ownership in place,
Exactly.
GM,
Exactly.
coach, and quarterback all in the perfect stages where we can actually build something strong, and it all culminates around like a new look. Like if this isn't like destiny of a new Broncos era, I don't know what is.
Yep. I agree, man. I'm pumped. I'm so excited. I love that they finally made the right choice. Like a big relief. First person I thought of is like Jeremy's probably fired up,
Oh
but
yeah.
I was obviously pumped too. All right, last
You
call before
texted
you.
me first. You texted me
Yeah,
first, and like I put my phone on silent, upside down, because I was like, I don't want it. I was watching it, on YouTube TV or whatever, and I didn't want. I knew it was going to be like slower than like Twitter or something, and I didn't want anybody to tip it. And so I was just like, I'm not even going to look at that. I'm not going to listen to anybody. I'm just going to watch the broadcast because I want it to be like I want Roger Goodell to give me either the good news or the bad news. And
oh
so
yeah,
yeah,
dude, that takes a lot. That takes a lot of discipline. I can never get myself to do that. No chance. No chance.
a couple
No
years
chance.
ago, I was like listening to podcasts and they would tip the picks and do all that stuff. And I was like, I didn't like it as much. I was just like, it's, I like the pomp and circumstance of like all this stuff. And then he's walking out and you're like sweating. And I was so nervous. And
Yeah. All right. Well, last thing, man. Let's. Do you think he ultimately wears number 10, or do you think he gets
definitely.
another, or do you want him to get another number?
So that was one of the things I was going to talk to you about is like the smoke screens. To me, that was a complete Sean Payton like smoke screen. Same with the Peyton Manning. Oh, they're very interested in JJ McCarthy. They got Peyton Manning on board. Like all of that, like Minnesota's like, radio guy, which I always thought was like the most ridiculous thing about he's desperate for JJ McCarthy, all that stuff. I was like, okay, this guy's the most tight-lipped guy in the league. There's no way he's telling an opposing team who he likes. If anything, that should tell you it's opposite.
Yeah, and that
But
that was coming from George Payton for sure, because he's got
well,
the
that's what
ties
they were
there too. I
trying to.
think.
Yeah, I wonder if he
I think
told
he's the
George
one that
Payton to
tipped it.
leak it.
I think he's the one
Yeah,
that tipped it. Yeah.
that makes more sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I said on Twitter, I said, people were like, oh well, now what number is he gonna wear? And I was like, if you go and look on Twitter right now, when they put the all the numbers out, they put this if you scroll down, if you have to open and they scroll all the way to the bottom, they put this tiny little asterisk that says jersey number subject to change. And I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, that's it. So like I have a feeling I wouldn't be shocked to hear like now they told Zach Wilson, you're 10. You're 10 for maybe a day, maybe. If you
Yeah.
want to change to 11 or
Yeah.
1 tomorrow, you can. But today you're 10 because I just think that was another Sean Payton smokescreen to just be like throw people off. Oh well, clearly they're not going to get. Why would they give him 10 if they're going to draft him tonight? So I
Exactly.
definitely think that was a thing.
Yeah. I don't think there's any doubt about it.
No.
But yeah, if you buy a Bo Nix jersey, like this is how it looks now. It shows as number one. But if you buy it,
Oh
they actually
yeah,
will not, they won't ship it until they get an
a
official
number.
number. And that's like before the season. Because I think he'll probably come in a rookie mini camp or training camp at like 16. I think he's the only one that's available. He could technically be number one too. But I think whether Zach Wilson makes a team or not, he's changing it. I think Bo Nix ultimately gets number 10. But I like him as number one. I would be fine with that. It'd be kind of
Yeah,
cool.
that would be sick. That would be sick. Tremon Smith, I guess, has number one right now, which I'm like, yeah, a special teamer is not going to outweigh the first round quarterback.
Yeah, well, but at least in the preseason, I think Bo Nix could still wear number one because he plays offense because they always allow
Oh,
like the
okay. Yeah, yeah,
doubles.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So we'll see.
I have a feeling he'll be 10 within a week. I honestly do. I think it'll be one of those. Sean Payton today during the press conference, they were like, that was just us kind of some showmanship on our part. He actually was going to be 10. Zach Wilson's going to be whatever. I have a feeling that could be really quick changed.
He said that? He said like about the number?
No, I'm
Oh,
saying I could
oh.
hear him say that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I feel like,
He,
because then what kind of a cult, like, unless he told Zach that, like, I don't know what kind of culture it sets of like a rookie's going to come in and like he takes the number that you choose because Zach Wilson doesn't want 10 anyways. I don't
that's
think.
what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I think Sean was like, you have to be 10 for today just to help us, like just to be like,
Oh, yeah, maybe. Maybe.
you
That'd be
know,
kind of
a
cool.
placeholder.
Yeah. Yeah. You
Yeah,
talk about,
because Zach Wilson was 11 in college, or yeah, and then one, I guess, in high school or whatever. So it's probably 11 or one
well,
for Zach
he was,
Wilson.
yeah, he was 11 before he switched to two, I think.
Right, two for the
Because,
Jets, but he was
well,
11 for BYU.
I think he was two at BYU as well, like his
Oh,
last
was he?
season.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Maybe
I
change it
think
to
so.
BYU.
I think like as a freshman he came in and he was 11, and then no, he was. You're right. He was one in BYU the
That's
whole
what I
time,
thought. Okay. Yeah. So I
and
think
then he was
that could
11
be
as a
like.
freshman.
So then when he was number 10, I was like, that's why I immediately thought it was a smokescreen because I was like, why would he pick 10 unless he was just like hoping we didn't pick his replacement possibly? But yeah, it just didn't make sense to me that he would do that.
Yeah, there's gonna be a whole bunch of changes to the numbers, anyways.
Yeah. I will
So
say, I just want to say, like, there's a few videos for people that are watching this that want to do a deep dive on Bo Nix. He did great interviews. There's uh, two with Chris Sims. One was like an hour long. That one was like amazing. He did one with RG3 that was really long. That was really cool. I'm not a big RG3 guy personally, but like that was a really good interview.
it was.
He did one with Kay Adams this last week. That was like she's even like, God, I hope Sean Payton picks you. And here's the other thing. He was going on Cowherd, he was going on Kay Adams, and he was going on Chris Sims. And these are all people that have like close ties to Sean Payton. And I'm like, why would he be picking Sean Payton like friendly places to do these interviews if this is not the guy? I just thought that was weird because it wasn't like he was just going on random ones. It was like all people that Sean goes on with. So,
Yeah.
because Sean always does Kay Adams, Sean always does Cowherd. So I
Yeah,
thought
and
that was interesting.
he was on McAfee before he even gave an official one to the media too.
Right.
Sean
And I
Payton
think
was.
that was more of a Bill Belichick thing. I think
Yeah.
that's a respecting each other. And here's the thing people last night were like throwing shade, and it's like Bill Belichick is telling you he really loves the pick. And he was throwing shade on Drake May because partly probably because New England picked him and he's not going to help New England out right now. But he loved Bo Nix. And then, Sean Payton obviously loves Bo Nix. But then these people on Twitter are like, oh, good luck with QB6 with the 12th pick. And you're like, if Bill Belichick and Sean Payton think it's good, why would anyone listen to that like theory? That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's
also,
wild.
and one more. Doug Farrar and Greg Cosell, they did one called X's and O's, and that one is like deep dive football, like heavy, where they were like, what did you see on this play? And he was like, I saw the safety drop and da da da. And it's like, if you want to see the brain power of Bo Nix, that's the one to watch because they called him a supercomputer after that. And when two of like the most like legendary scouts are like, this guy's like brain is insane, that's where you're like,
Yeah,
let's go.
I'll link them all too. I'll put all the links
Okay.
in the
Yeah, those
description
are
too, because
all.
yeah, I got the Doug Farrar one, and then
Yep.
obviously I think
Yeah, Chris
the few
Sims
other ones that
unbuttoned.
we.
He did. Kay Adams, Cowherds, and then RG3. Yeah, those are the main ones. Um, but yeah, no, like again, I like you said you like Drake May because once you've got to kind of know his personality, you really liked him, and I like him too. Like I like his personality, but I did the opposite. I was like, I'm gonna do everything football related because I don't want to fall in love with a guy's personality. I want to make sure I like him on the field before I do that, and so. I watched all the Bo Nix stuff I could, and then I was like, I wonder what this guy. I didn't even know what he looked like because with the jersey on and the eye black, he looks kind of different. And so then, yeah, you see like the Top Gun Iceman haircut, and you're like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
And then when you hear him talk, you're like, oh, dang, this dude is like super humble, super
Very smart.
grounded. And he's the type of guy that Sean Payton can coach hard.
No doubt.
There are certain young people that you have to really like. I feel like Caleb Williams might be kind of like this. I don't know. But there's certain people that you're like, if you challenge them, they like get all offended and all this stuff. And it's like, no, he's like that old school mentality of like, I want to be coached hard because I want to be great. If I'm doing something wrong, I need to hear about it.
No doubt.
Even Henry Chisholm on DNVR this morning, he posted out a video, who was a big hater, by the way, the
He
whole
was.
time.
He was a big hitter.
But this is going to be my favorite part of the next month or two, is watching all the people that dismissed Bo Nix through this whole process come around. Because
Yeah.
all they're going to do now is they're going to actually look into the stuff that they should have done 2 months ago. They're all going to start looking into it, and then they're going to go, oh my gosh, how did I like not like this guy? And it was like, yeah, because you just didn't look. You just
And
heard narrative.
I'm gonna point them all to you. I'm like, you should have listened to Jeremy. I'm gonna tag you on Twitter, be like, you should have listened to this guy before anybody else, because that's
And
it.
and again,
Yeah.
it's not like I'm some like brilliant like scout. It's just I just looked at it. That's all I did. Once I
Yeah.
looked at it,
You
I
just
was
put the
like, I
work in,
don't
man. And that's people.
understand.
I'm telling you, we live in a day and age people don't want to put the work.
Yeah,
They,
and
they
it's like
want
it's
they want the
all but
opinion. They don't want to put the work in.
and it's all on YouTube. So it's not like I had to like get like
Cut
8 to
film.
8
Yeah,
reels and
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
No
It's like
shit.
it couldn't have been more easy to like just watch.
Yeah.
Like
No
yet
doubt
people
about
still
it.
didn't.
No doubt. Well, I'm excited for rounds 2 and 3, and obviously through the weekend. Jeremy, I
Me
appreciate it,
too.
man. This is awesome. Hopefully me and you and David Talks Broncos will have some future episodes together too. I think he wanted a collab, but
Yeah, that'd be
much
cool.
appreciated, man. Have a great rest of your day. Enjoy your weekend. To everybody
Yeah,
watching, peace out. We appreciate it, guys. Have a good one.
go Broncos.
Go Broncos. Go Bo.